The East African tradition of the Maasai tribe is to greet one another with the words Kasirian Ingera, which is Swahili for, so how are the children? In that community, the well-being of their children is the highest priority. If you are interested in participating in thought-provoking conversations about the well-being of children and families, please tune in every Wednesday at 3 p.m. to Fresh Start Today on 860 AM WNOV. Together, we can save our children. Good afternoon. You're listening to Fresh Start Today with your hosts, Jermaine Reed and Sean Roby, with the best engineer in the city, Mr. Keon. Keon, how you doing today? All right, engineer Keon, but we have a videographer, Mr. Tony Cash. Mr. Cash, how you doing? Okay, we got back in the studio with us this week our very special guest, Miss Diane Williams. You all met her on last week, and we're going to finish the discussion that we started. She's a young mother who currently is involved with Child Protective Services. She has an open case. They call CPS, and her child has been in the system for how long?
About 2.5 years.
Okay, we're going to speak up really loud. So
pull that closer to you.
It's been about 2.5 years.
About
almost
2.5 years. Okay, and you've had some challenges. Some bumpy roads. Okay, we're going to talk about that, but we're also going to talk about some updates on what has happened over the course of the last week since you first appeared on Fresh Start Today. And again, to tell your side of the story. But I did get a chance to do some research and talk with some folks who are very important in the child welfare community. And we also had a interesting exchange with your legal counsel. Or soon-to-be former legal counsel. So we'll be talking about that today on the show. And just to all of our guests out there, the first-time listeners, I'm sure we have some new friends who are tuning in today on a state level, judicial level, legislative level, just all over the place. But, hey, we just want to welcome you to Fresh Start Today, and feel free to call 414-444-5250, 414-444-5250, as we move forward in this conversation. Today, we're going to be talking about client and attorney privilege, along with what are the elements of an emotionally abusive relationship between an attorney and a client. Some things that you can never think that happen, but I guess in some abusive, in whatever regardless of what kind of relationship it is that some of the same qualities or traits will exist in abusive relationships. So we're going to talk about what those traits are, and we should be having a special guest coming into the studio. Actually, a special surprise guest. So we had one attorney, and she was going to be calling in, but then she had a death in her family. You know, our superwoman attorney, she couldn't be with us today, but our condolences are to her and her family. But we do have a surprise fill-in. So if our surprise guest could call at 414-444-5250, that'd be great. First couple of announcements we want to talk about. July is National UV Safety Awareness Month. I don't know why we're talking about National UV Safety Awareness, but I guess it's good for the eyes. You need some
ultraviolet safety awareness. You got to be prepared, because a lot of kids this time of year want to go outside and hang out, but then families need to be prepared to make sure that these kids are protected in terms of clothes, eyewear, etc., because everybody can get sunburn, which can lead to cancer.
Well, I'm glad you
oh, no problem. I'm here for you.
Okay. Now, why are we talking about ice cream month?
Because while those kids is outside in the sun, we need to make sure that they're eating healthy, and then they're also learning.
All right. And with these high temperatures, make sure that we're checking on our elders in the community, make sure everybody is staying hydrated. It'd be a great time in the summer to make sure that children are engaged in reading and other educational activities, as well as recreational. July 29th. Listen, this is what I need the community to do. You know, we always talking about child welfare and what we don't understand and what we don't know. And look at how they're doing us. But there are opportunities for us to engage in a community forum with child welfare. What am I talking about? The Partnership Council meeting. You all have heard me talk about the Partnership Council meeting on Fresh Start Today. Well, the next one is going to be on July 29th. I believe it's from 12 o'clock p.m. to noon. No, 12 o'clock p.m. until 2 p.m. Now, you have to bring your own lunch, because they don't provide lunch for the guests. It's just for the folks on the council who get a chance to eat food. So we just have to be hungry and watch these folks eat. But maybe you want to bring you a cracker, or bring you a candy bar, bring you a bottle of water, something, I don't know. But the Partnership Council, they're going to be talking about new developing events in child welfare activity and, policy and all that kind of interesting stuff that so gravely impact the lives of so many folks who are living in zip codes 53206, 53208, 53210, 53212, 53209, 53218. So if you're part of that zip code, you need to come to the Partnership Council on July 29th. State Fair, and we're going to be giving away a set of State Fair tickets before the show commences. Good afternoon. Is this my special guest? Oh, it's not my special guest? All right. Well, let's kind of talk about it. I'm going to ask you a couple questions. Over the course of last week, you came on the show, Miss Williams.
Yeah.
And you brought up a couple interesting things. Your daughter has been in the system, and your grandmother, no, not your grandmother, but the child's grandmother was interested in taking placement to be an adoptive resource for your daughter. And there are some barriers that you all encountered. And I didn't know what the barriers were specifically, but allegedly it was because of some allegations of abuse and or neglect. I'm not sure which one it is, abuse, neglect. And there were some concerns on child welfare side. Is that true?
True.
Okay. And then there was the issue of they talked about a failed safety plan. And for people, I'll talk a little bit in a minute about what a failed safety plan is. But I guess there was some type of agreement that whenever things went down with the domestic violence situation and they remove your child due to failure to protect. That's correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And now you have to talk to me today because we all right. This is probably one of the most important moments of your journey in child welfare right here.
Yeah.
It's an opportunity for you to vocalize your experience. Tell your story.
Well, can I tell you how the protective plan went? Okay, it went like, after I had my daughter, the thing was, me and my daughter, we moved with my mom because a lot of stuff was going on between me and her father. So we moved with my mom, so the thing was, me and my daughter's father, we couldn't be around the baby alone. So that's when a protective plan came in place that we stay with my mom so that he can be able to come see the baby. And then once they tell us that he can come see the baby, then they tell us that he can't come see the baby.
And that's what you said to your case manager in my presence on yesterday, and she agreed with that.
Yeah.
That it kind of went back and forward.
Yeah.
And so at some point, the baby father came over and had a visit with the child with your mom present, and you were there. And so they were concerned that was a violation of the safety plan. And at that point, they removed the child from your mom?
No, it actually didn't go that way.
Okay.
It actually went like, they were, they had little problems with him coming around. But the thing was, we knew not to be around my daughter without a third party. It was always about a third party.
Okay.
It was never about, a lot of other, it was just always about us having a third party around to protect the baby just in case things fall out with us.
Okay. So you said they had some ongoing concern with that. So they keep coming to you say he can't come around or that he can come around?
They will come and say, oh, you can't have him around, but then, he will call the police to see his daughter, and the police will be like, well, you have to let him see the baby and stuff like that. And then...
So maybe there's a disconnect between child welfare, judicial, and law enforcement, perhaps?
Yes.
Okay. And as a result of that disconnection, your family caught the brunt of it?
Yes.
Okay. So we're looking at that. Okay,
so when he did call the police to see his daughter and stuff like that, that's when my supervisor stepped in, like, oh, well, you have to let him see the baby.
Your supervisor who? You talking about on the ongoing case management side? Or
on my ongoing case.
Okay.
That's when she came in and said we had to let him see the baby, and then they said that we don't supposed to let him see the baby and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, we knew once he, he also had, partial custody of our daughter too, so
he has joint custody.
Yeah, so I really couldn't stop him from seeing her when he called law enforcement.
I got you. Interesting. So they say the failed safety plan, and your mother was responsible for that because she was like the guarantor, if you will.
And I could stop you right there too, because it was never actually a failed safety plan from my point of view, from my understanding. Me and my daughter my worker helped me and my daughter move out my mom's house into my own house, into my own place. You know, that's the safety plan was long gone.
Wait a minute. So you moved out.
3 months later, the safety plan was long gone. And I've been out my mama's house for 3 months before they came and said that it was a failure of a safety.
If I may quote your case manager yesterday, you know, when your mother brought up the fact that, you know, there was these allegations of abuse that were never confirmed or substantiated, and that maybe the system was using that became a barrier to her getting her grandchild.
Yes.
It was your case manager who said, and I quote, more importantly, there was a failed safety plan.
Yes.
And what you're saying, there wasn't a failed safety plan because at this time, the worker, one of your workers, supervised somebody, helped you relocate from your mom's house to your own house.
Yes.
Okay. So then at what point was the child moved and placed into foster care?
Okay, so in my own house, I was having a lot of complications with keeping my daughter farther away and stuff like that. So, you know, me and my daughter, we would always still go spend the night by my mom's house, you know, to keep safe and stuff like that, you know. So
you weren't inviting him to come over and see that it was that this person is going to appear, that I'm going to be involved, I'm the daddy, I'm coming, and you were having some challenges, so you took refuge over by your mom's house.
Yeah.
Okay, then what happened?
So he would come down in the ways, you know, he would, wherever he see me at, he would try to fight or whatever, you know. But at this point in time, I knew to leave my daughter with my mom most of the time, you know, to protect my daughter and to be able to protect myself at the same time. So months go by, you know, we got somebody coming to see us, we got this, we got that going on. Okay, and I have a worker, you know, my worker, she was really nice. I mean, she helped me. She was really a supportive woman, and she helped me with a lot of stuff, like far as things with my daughter, like whenever, anything we ever needed, she helped, you know. She was a really good person, but the thing is, they sort of like built the relationship with my apartment manager.
Who is they? Who are you when you say they built a relationship?
I believe my worker.
When you say worker, because there's a lot of workers you have in case. Are we talking about a case manager worker? Are we talking about a supervised visitation worker? Are we talking about a parent? When you say worker,
I believe it was my case manager.
Case manager. Okay.
Yes.
That they built a relationship with
the manager of my apartment building.
Why would you think that?
Okay. Me and my daughter, we had a lot of problems. We had a lot of issues going on with the apartment, which I've been trying to have the agency help me move out that apartment since the first month I moved in, and then the prior 2 months that I stayed there, I've been trying to get them to help me move out the apartment because of a little bug issues.
Okay.
You know, so the last month I stayed there, I didn't pay rent because me and my baby, we was having too many issues.
I got you.
So I didn't pay rent. So then, like, okay, you know, we start spending the night by my mom's house. We were by my mom's house. This is around the time where we're constantly by my mom's house. So my daughter's father, you know, I'm not messing with him like that. I'm not answering for him. I'm not doing nothing. But he knew some people that stayed in the area that told him, you know what I mean? He busted my windows and stuff like that. So, you know, when he busted my windows and stuff like that, you know, that's
so you had some complication. You had some ongoing stuff. But at some point they came and they removed the child from you, not from your mom, but from you, and placed the child into.
But it's crazy how it happened because it's like, okay, he bust my window, right? My landlord came like, oh, can you pay for the window or are you going to pay rent? I'm letting them know, like, okay, you can get the money out the security deposit. I got to move with this. I'm a single mother. Woo, woo, woo. So 3 days later, the sheriffs and my visitation worker and my worker shows up at my door and says that they have to remove my baby from home because of the window
being broken.
Oh.
So at this same time, you were not technically physically staying there because you were staying at your mom's house.
Yes.
And so going back to Jermaine's original question, why do you think that all of them, or them meaning the case manager or ongoing case manager along with the apartment manager, were working together against you because
She didn't like me because I wasn't giving her no rent money.
okay, and it was more insult to injury because the windows got bust.
Yeah.
And so now more grounds to say, hey, this is not going to work. But then from all that, they came and wanted to remove your child even though you all were not staying there.
Yes. They always told me, okay, look, remember how I always said, they always said in order for anyone to be around my daughter, there has to be a third party there. Mm-hmm. There was a third party the night. There was actually a fourth party the night my daughter got taken.
Okay. All right. So we kind of got an idea. So now Child Protective Services, they're deeply involved in your day-to-day life. There's concern issues around safety and the allegedly failure to protect the child. But I'm still not understanding this journey because along this journey you have some court order conditions that you needed to comply with that according to you, you have done those things and your worker,
Yes.
according to you, had not connected you to a lot of resources. Okay?
No.
And DV was the only one that you said that she connected you to was domestic violence.
Domestic violence, and she referred me over to Shorehaven too. But around that time when I was doing those two classes, I ended up getting incarcerated
Okay.
for about 4 months.
Okay. So we have our very special guest on the phone line. Good afternoon, Senator Lena Taylor.
Good afternoon, Mr. Reed, and to your guests and to your listeners.
Hey, I just want to say thank you for referring this brilliant young lady, Diane Williams, to me and to this program, and hopefully we're going to be able to get an understanding in terms of what has been going on with her case for over the last 2.5 years. But
I want to thank you. I just want to chime in for one moment and for your listeners to know, our office does work to help individuals that have constituent issues, any kind of issue that they have. But we always like to connect people to the experts who are out there, who are doing the work day in and day out. That's the kind of work that Mr. Reed does. And so we appreciate you and that you've wrapped your arms around her and listened to her situation, and so that we can do the kind of follow-up that needs to happen for people, because her case is not the only one that we've heard about.
right. And I believe that because I'm constantly getting calls on a weekly basis from people, grandparents who can't get their grandkids, and parents who are complaining that too many of their children are being removed and sent out of county to live in other communities and disconnected from their culture. And mothers who are just, and fathers as well, who are just having a unhealthy experience with child welfare. So I need your legal expertise today.
Okay.
Because this particular guest today, Ms. Williams, she is scheduled to go for a TPR hearing on the 15th of July.
And that is a termination of parental rights hearing.
Yes.
Okay.
And so I guess the state or the child welfare entity has built a case in terms of why they feel that it's legitimate for her rights to be terminated. Over the course of her case, she's had issues where, according to her, services were not connected. She was not connected to services. She had to take parenting classes, and she identified a parenting class out in Menominee Falls.
Yes.
And
Okay.
there were transportation issues. Some days she had to walk out there to Menominee Falls.
What? Oh my
Yeah, I'm looking at a certificate right now, dated February of 2016, for anger management and also for parenting. Supposedly, she had submitted these documents to child welfare. And I was with her case manager yesterday, who confirmed that she completed the courses. But coincidentally, 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, according to Ms. Williams, the case manager said she has to redo the parenting class. So we asked yesterday why. She said because she missed a couple sessions. But she have a completion certificates right here. And why would you wait 2 or 3 weeks or 4 weeks before a termination of parental rights hearing to tell the parent that you have a problem with something that she completed back in February? So, fast forwarding, the attorney we talked to yesterday has resigned from the case because she talked about that there is, there's this attorney-client privilege concept, and I want you to kind of talk about what that is and confidentiality being an issue. But what she reported to Ms. What did your attorney, when she spoke with you yesterday, what did she tell you the reason why she's coming off the case?
She said because she felt uncomfortable. Basically, like she was saying that she basically said like I hurt her feelings or something. Like, really, your feelings? What about my feelings? I'm the one that's going through a tragic loss.
How did you hurt her feelings?
By talking about my case over the show.
Oh, last week Wednesday.
By saying that I feel like she's really not doing her job, which is the truth.
Okay, so Senator Attorney Taylor, can you talk to the audience about what is attorney-client privilege versus duty of confidentiality?
Okay, well, let me first back up and say, what the attorney, of course, I don't know who the attorney is, and I don't know what the attorney's perspective was, but I guess if the attorney is hearing her client say, I don't trust my attorney, which is basically, what happened. She's saying, I don't trust my attorney, and she's hearing that over the air. She probably is challenged by that.
Okay.
She's probably challenged by the fact that her client is saying, I don't believe nothing you say. So it makes it a little difficult to represent somebody who you are trying to do whatever, for or with, and that person doesn't believe your words or trust your words. Now, I'm not suggesting that it's not legitimate,
right?
That she feels the way she does, but the reality is that that's probably the basis, right?
Okay.
That the attorney is working from, and so with that in mind, it makes it a little more difficult for her and the client to be able to work together. So you got to, legitimately say nobody wants to hear in an interview versus in a meeting with their client, that they're not trusted. So, if it was up to me, I probably would have encouraged however she feels about the attorney to have potentially had some of those conversations.
Well, I've been
asking
my attorney for 2.5 years to resign herself from my case. It took for me to express myself over a talk show and for her to say that she want to remove herself from my case. I've been crying to her for almost 2.5 years.
I hear you, my sister, but you don't have to ask the attorney to resign in the future, so that you also know you have the ability to say, I'd like another attorney. Now, you only get, I think it's one switch. And then after that, whether it's a public defender or not, you get one opportunity to ask for another attorney, and then you can go from there. But, Jermaine, you asked me about attorney-client privilege and something else. I apologize.
The duty of confidentiality.
Okay, so let me start with the latter, the duty of confidentiality.
Mm-hmm.
As a lawyer, you have a responsibility to keep the communication between you and your client,
which has been failed.
No, let her go ahead. I'm Senator.
Okay, so you have a necessity to keep the communications between you and your client confidential.
Okay.
That means that you're not supposed to be discussing or disclosing to persons outside of your relationship with your client. You're not supposed to be sharing that information with somebody else. You have that duty. What that duty is called is attorney-client privilege, which means that the attorney and the client have a relationship, and just like a husband and a wife have a relationship, that relationship, just like a pastor and a parishioner have a relationship, that relationship gives you the ability of what you talk about to be held in secret.
Now, is that on the front end, at the front end, where you're trying to gather information in order to render legal services, or is that throughout the term of the?
That's forever, even afterwards.
Okay.
So if I withdraw, I still can't talk about attorney-client privilege. As a matter of fact, I'm sorry, remind me,
Diane.
Miss Diane.
Yes.
If Miss Diane came to me and I represented Miss Diane, and then I withdraw on Miss Diane's case, I can't now go and, for example, let's say Miss Diane instead was in a custody case with her baby's dad. I couldn't then represent him on the other side. So not only can I not share the information that we talked about, but neither can I be on the other side of the issue that I represented Miss Diane related to.
Okay.
So and that goes even after, we had our time together as an attorney and client.
Okay. Now, I want to ask a couple questions from Miss Diane. Your case has been open for 2.5 years. And how many attorneys have you? Only had one attorney from the beginning, right?
Yes.
Was that a public or a private attorney?
Public.
And what's interesting, Senator Taylor, is that yesterday in meeting with some folks, including the ongoing case manager on this case, I was told that Diane had a private attorney, that if she didn't like the attorney or she didn't agree with the attorney, that she had options to move, select somebody else. Well, the ongoing case manager even thought that Diane had a private attorney. And when Diane told her, she said, well, I don't have a private attorney. I ain't got no money for no attorney. The case manager asked her if she was sure. So when we look at, I'm talking about case information and folks, accuracy of information and what is being reported from the entry-level position all the way up to top management, I would think you would know that. But the other piece is that not the guardian lighting, but your attorney that's representing you. The attorney on this particular case, the public defender, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now let me clear that up, because often people say they're public defender, and so let me be real clear. You can have an attorney that is a private attorney.
Okay.
So, for example, when I first got my first job, I worked as a lawyer. I worked as a public defender.
Okay.
I was an attorney in the public defender's office.
Got you.
However, when I went into private practice, I still took cases that were cases from the public defender office, but I was a private attorney that took those cases.
Okay. So she might be a private attorney, but she didn't hire this attorney.
Correct.
Okay. So it's like the public defender's office may have a provider network.
Exactly.
And they consult. Got you. Okay. So this attorney that she has, whether she's public defender, private, whatever, she says that, Miss Diane inquired last Wednesday around 2:45 p.m. about who were the case principals on her case. And I stood right there with Miss Diane, and her attorney told her that the GAL was a certain person. I get an email early this morning, from this particular GAL who says, this is not my case. So
it sounds like the attorney, may not have had all her facts together, is what it sounds like I'm hearing.
But how can any attorney?
Several levels, because when you look at the beginning of the case where Ms. Williams mentioned the supervisor, the ongoing case manager supervisor, and they went back and forth about whether or not the visits there's a third party and whatnot. So it seems like that's been the only consistency throughout the entire case.
But my concern is,
I couldn't hear what that person said. Help me out.
No, I was saying from the onset of the case, it sounds like there's been inconsistencies throughout the case, starting from the beginning where Ms. Williams mentioned that they didn't know whether or not a third party should be there, whether or not there was a plan in place and whatnot. And then fast forwarding now up until these most recent events, it's the same exact thing.
But my concern is not having all the facts. I mean, if you are representing a client in a CPS case, it seems to me that you will be having ongoing communication with whoever the GAL. Mm-hmm. So who have you been representing and talking to for 2.5 years? So
yeah, and not only who have you been talking to, during that time, what kind of review has been happening on the file would be something, to just, be concerned about. And I think more importantly, I wish, because I hate that there's a last minute change, candidly, because if you got a court case coming up and there's been a change, I don't know that the court is going to slow the case down. Now, that's going to be a whole nother discussion to get the court to slow the case down.
Wow. It's interesting because when we did go out to Children's Court Center, and parents out there need to know this, that you can go out and file a motion to appear before the judge. But when we got out there, we found out that the attorney has to file that motion.
Because you can't just practice law now. We didn't get these law degrees for nothing.
Wait. There's a form that we completed. So I want to take that back. We completed a form, and I got a copy here. Anybody can complete a form, and they could put a request in to see the judge. What she could not do is access her file without having to pay. It's $1.25 per page. But her attorney can go get the file for free. So we asked her to call her attorney to get her file. And the attorney didn't want to accept her consent to speak with me. And so then, we got that cleared up, and the attorney said to me that she is going to call me, and I can call her back once I talk with the administrator out at Children's Court Center, the clerk of courts, and we would discuss the case. Well, 15, 20 minutes later after I called her back, whatever it was, she said she needed a written consent, and she would draft up the language and fax it to me. Well, she did, but what she faxed was a statement saying that she was not going to release any information to me because she felt the information was protected, it's confidential, and she was resigning from the case. Prior to speak for me, she filed a motion, which I don't know, that's questionable. But anyway, she's coming off 2 weeks before this lady has to go to court. I'm really concerned about a couple things that Miss Diane has talked about. One is that, according to her, that she was always told that she could not speak up in court, that her attorney had to speak for her. And she was never happy with the outcome. So now we have a situation where you're 2 weeks from your parental rights possibly being terminated. We're asking to meet with the judge. The attorney has pulled herself off of the case. Mm-hmm. She didn't know who the guardian ad litem was, or she didn't tell us who the guardian ad litem was. And
it was the wrong name.
Right. But there appeared to be, from the way Miss Diane talked, like there was an intimidation. She felt intimidated by this relationship and this person. Is there such thing as attorney-client? Is it an abusive relationship between an attorney and a client?
I mean, I guess there could be any kind of abusive relationship.
Okay.
Mr. Reed. However, I can't speak to that different, situation, scenario that you're mentioning. I think the only thing that I could say to Ms. Diane and to anybody that's listening, if you're uncomfortable with somebody that represents you, you got to speak up. And if you can't speak up, if you're afraid to speak up, then you got to find somebody that you feel comfortable speaking to.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? You cannot let somebody be your voice and you're afraid to use your voice with them. Because how do they know? How you feel or what's going on? If you have questions, if you don't understand, you have to ask those questions. And so I'm glad that Ms. Diane had connected with our office, and ultimately we were able to, try to do what we can, as well as to connect her with individuals like yourself who could also be with her and help navigate through the parts that we can't do as a legislative office. But sometimes you also have to get help on the legal end. And oftentimes, especially being a lawyer, I've often been a go-between between individuals and their clients. Sometimes even just help people better understand not only what the attorney is saying, but sometimes for the attorney to understand, well, you need to break that down. That makes sense to you, but it don't make sense to them, and you got to help them understand what they're saying. Or do you understand what they're saying when they say this? And so I want to encourage that, because I don't want anybody to have an attorney that you have for a period of time and you don't say nothing. And something as important as your baby.
Right. So you're talking about is one of the primary duties of the attorney is to make sure their client is well informed.
For sure. And forgive the wind in the background. I'm sorry.
No problem. Let me ask Ms. Diane, what was that relationship? Did you feel, how many times did you have contact with your attorney over the course of, 2.5 years?
I've seen her probably like 3 times in person and probably 7 times over the phone.
Okay. So there was some contact. So, did you feel that whenever you talked with her, you had meetings that you're involved in? Did your attorney really break those things down where you understood? Was she keeping you updated and informed?
No, I was always lost. That's why I was always so frustrated about things. And then it just make me really emotional because I don't understand. I don't know what's going on. So,
and dealing with the system, I'm sure, Senator Taylor, you've heard this, that for parents, it can be quite intimidating.
Yes, I do understand. It's, first of all, it's just overwhelming.
Yes.
All of it is overwhelming. And then, depending on the education level, it's going to make it even more challenging because, let me be clear, I got a law degree, and sometimes I got to get understanding.
Right.
Okay? So, and I'm in the courtroom, right? And I have to ask questions, so I have clarity, so I can help somebody else understand. So I say that to say you can't be afraid to ask for help, to say I don't understand, to say, well, I'm sorry, could you break that down for me some more? Because I don't follow what that means.
You know what? I'm glad we're having this discussion. And just an FYI for you, Senator Taylor, we are organizing, we're in the process of organizing a group that we call the League of Justice Family Advocacy Group. And the goal is to be a nonprofit legal and social work entity that will consist of volunteers like attorneys, behavioral health specialists, legislators, child welfare social workers, former CPS client, and some other child welfare professionals. And we got some folks who are really, really interested in being a part of this consortium. And basically what we're going to do is advocate for the interests of these parents so that we can go into a meeting with Miss Diane.
You know what? I call that, I've been saying in this capacity as well as in other capacities, we need connectors. We need people in the community. I often say a connector is somebody who can interpret on behalf of people. And so it's something, to be, if you don't speak the language.
Right.
We always can understand that. Like if you're somewhere and they speak a different language, you'd be like, I don't know what they're saying. I don't speak Spanish. I don't speak Hmong. You can say that. But sometimes you can be in the room with somebody and they maybe speak the same quote-unquote language, but there still is a difference because culturally there may be a different language or understanding. Mm-hmm. And so it is so important to have those kind of connectors, those interpreters,
right?
So that people understand process. Sometimes it's also just straight up about people don't trust.
And so this entity will be that trust element. So it can work from a collaborative standpoint. It can work to the advantage of the case management agency, juvenile courts, but also for the client. Exactly. Because a lot of them are walking away and they just don't understand what that meeting was about. There's a lot of mental health things that are going on, grief and counseling, and so we're going to really do what we can to help prep them.
Count me in.
All right. I'm glad because we'll be helping them navigate the system, understand court process, but also how to present yourself in court,
Exactly.
And then we'll bring them back and we'll, talk with them in everyday language what just went down.
Exactly.
Okay. But it also helps us keep an eye.
I'm sorry, because oftentimes people don't have that level of understanding.
Right.
And their lawyers or their caseworkers, for that matter, don't break it down in that fashion. And so I know when I was practicing law every day, it was one of the things that I think people appreciated about me most is because I did take the time to break it down like that. And, and sometimes something simple to somebody else, it just may not they may not understand even what to expect. So I look forward to you doing that. That's what our office tries to do. But then there's just a level that we can go to, because after a certain point, you really need a lawyer in that room with you.
Let me pause and make two appeals. One is that if you are a family member or individual in our community who has an open child welfare case, or you've had experience with child welfare, child protective services, and you've had some concerns, maybe you didn't get the support you need, or maybe you have some valuable information that you can share with us. We're just trying to get a number of folks to give us some information so we know who's a part of this effort. Please give me a call at 414-351-1100, extension 150. We want to hear your story. We want to know how we can support you. But we also want to learn from you as well. So we need as many ambassadors, folks who have gone and survived the system. Right. And there's some folks out here who've had some amazing experiences with child welfare. We want to hear those too, so we can learn what those dynamics were.
Yes.
Let's share the information. Give me a call. Because, again, the League of Justice is coming, and we have some dynamic folks who are going to be a part of this consortium so that we can provide some strong, informed advocacy for children who are living in Milwaukee County, who are making up the, and particularly black kids who are making up the majority in our local child welfare system. The second thing, if you want to be a foster parent, please give Fresh Start a call at 414-351-1100. Now,
let me piggyback on those two things you
Sure.
just said. The first is we have a shortage of foster care families, especially locally, would be great, so that children do not have to be taken out of their communities. And the other piece that I think is really important is to also ask individuals who have worked for the department. And I know that I have individuals who have called and shared information with us, people who have had to leave because of the quality of service, or should I say the lack thereof, and individuals who have sued because of the kinds of positions that they were put in related to their jobs. So I encourage people to share those stories, whether they're old or new, so that there can be a real documentation, not only through the league, but also through our office. If there's ever a way that we can be of assistance, don't hesitate to call.
Sounds great. And I just want to say something. We always talk about there's a shortage of people, but see, that speaks to the eligibility criteria. Because we have Miss Diane's mother who had a history of allegations that were not founded, but yet post-allegations, she was a kinship care provider, right? Mm-hmm. For one of her relatives. So how can the state certify or license or approve you to be a kinship care provider for a relative, but then for your own grandchild, you're not good enough to adopt?
So that's a really good question, and I'm glad you asked. One of the things that I've heard over the last decade that has often happened, and I know people before I ever was elected who had an experience of people being sent to do kinship and steered away from foster care. And kinship, outside of if you have a felony, they allow you, even when you have a felony, you can get, or if somebody in your household has a felony, you can get kinship, but what you can't get is foster care. And then one of the things that also seems to happen is children who are in foster care, when they're out of our community, they tend to have more medicine, services, mental health assessments that they tend to get, because it's my understanding that it may also change the amount of dollars.
Oh, there's some money. There's a money train.
Yes. That they're able
and a whole
to
lot of folk
receive.
getting paid, Senator. A whole lot of folk getting paid.
So my point, the answer to your question is, it seems to be that there is no real quote unquote assessment process that happens for individuals, or definitely with very little rigor, maybe, or not as much rigor as with foster care. But in foster care, they also tend to, it seems, in some communities and with family, they tend to be, I have heard, and
Right.
there seems to be some follow-up to suggest that it is true, that there's a much harder rigor, or I won't even say rigor because that's really not the right word, because it's subjective, judgments
Gotcha.
that are made when it comes to individuals and their, in their same family with the grandparent and so on and so forth.
I'm going to read a statement. I'm interested to see what your thoughts are behind this. This was an article that was written in the Lansing State Journal entitled Parents Outgunned in Child Welfare Cases. And I quote, "Parent advocates say child welfare erects a wall between kids and their families because the state is the only agency helping parents overcome their struggles and at the same time is their courtroom opponent, logging those struggles as possible evidence against them. In child welfare cases, judges can issue lifelong penalties based on far less evidence than is required in a criminal court." End of quote. What are your thoughts about that statement? Do you think that's true, or?
I think that there's a lot of truth that can exist to that, and the reason I say it is because if you don't know, if you couple, first of all, just the trauma, right, of
Yeah.
your home being broken up and your children being away, you already in an emotional spot, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is challenging for you. And so that coupled with, if you had challenges that had your child removed in the first place, and you now got additional emotional stuff because your child is removed, that puts you in a different place. And if the state services, because this is what I have found, including the young man who came to our office just a little less than a month ago, who had just been released. He had been released from the adult system 2 weeks. He had been in Lincoln Hills, but before that, he had been in foster care.
Right.
But he had never received any adequate services in any of those stages, and now here he is in an adult system. So if the services are not there in the way that they need, and I'm not going to even begin to talk about whether or not children have positive experiences all the time when they're in foster care.
Right.
So I think the real challenge is we do need kind of the league that you've talked about, a group, a collaborative that in the way that you've talked about, because you need the oversight. You need something helping parents to know how to navigate, but also helping them to connect to resources, because the truth of the matter is it is conflicting that the state wears more than one hat. And the hat is to take somebody from their parents, to service that family on all sides, the kids, the parents, you name it, and then to be the entity that's pushing the envelope with the DA for them to lose parental rights.
And you see,
When the state's job is supposed to be reunification, that's supposed to be the priority.
Right. And so the reason why we kind of select these particular experts or representatives from different fields is because if we have an attorney on the legal defense team, legal justice, then they're able to really monitor, in a sense, what should be happening from a lawyer standpoint with that particular case.
And that's really important. I mean, it's one of the things, being a lawyer, it's one of the things that I even know in my office. So, for example, my Senate office has limitations on what we can get and know in these cases. But as a lawyer, someone can give us a release as a Senate office, but as a lawyer, I have the ability to go look at files and see information that others may or may not be able to see.
Right.
And that's really important. So you need somebody from all angles. You need somebody who knows who does the best programming and services.
Right.
You need somebody who can help them to know how to work through, whatever pieces that they have to work through. But you need somebody who also can look at, on a policy side, what needs to be done and can know how to advocate on that end and deal with the department.
Okay.
And hold the department accountable. All those pieces are different.
Shared
and
accountability. Right.
A different hat,
Right.
so to say.
Now, let me say this because I know we have a few minutes left to the show, and it's my understanding we do have a caller. Meech is on the line, but we're going to wait a minute, Meech. I want to kind of go back to that whole abusive relationship. I'm looking at an article from Mark Galanter and the State Bar of Texas ethics rules, which reflects ethics rules for lawyers across the U.S. And so they created this client-lawyer wheel that is referenced in a book called Lowering the Bar. And a power and control wheel has been developed as a tool to recognize abuse and psychological assault by lawyers against their clients. And according to Mark Galanter, in the middle of this wheel, there's a label that says power and control. But some of the other traits in an abusive relationship, according to him, between a lawyer and a client is using coercion and threats, terrorism and assaults, emotional abuse, isolation and guilt, minimizing, denying, or blaming, information abuse, abusing attorney privilege, and economy abuse. And some of the examples they gave, and I'm interested to just get some feedback from you. For example, under emotional abuse, he talked about putting the client down, making the client feel bad about him or herself, making the client think that maybe there's something psychologically wrong, humiliating the client, making the client feel guilty was an example of emotional abuse. Using attorney privilege, he said acting like the boss, treating the client like a servant, making big decisions without the client, ignoring client instructions, decisions, and best interests. I don't know if you've ever seen anything like that in your practice.
Well, you know, you're mentioning quite a bit, which is why I said what I did earlier. A person should feel comfortable with their lawyer.
Yes.
Your lawyer is your counselor.
Yes.
Your lawyer is your advocate. Your lawyer is speaking for you, but is supposed to be speaking for you.
All right.
Not just speaking, not doing what they think, but doing what it is that you all come up with after the lawyer shares with you, look, this is what you're dealing with. You know, these are your options. A lawyer should be the one to share information and not tell you what to do, but help you to have the information so you can make a choice.
So if folks want to do two things, if they want to replace their attorney, they can contact the folks out there at Children Court Center, inform your attorney in writing or have a discussion with them. If that doesn't work, you can speak up in court or you can contact the public defender's office. Now, Mr. Roby, how can clients file a grievance against their lawyer for misconduct in the state of Wisconsin?
They can contact the Office of Lawyer.
That person should get next to the mic because we can't hear them good.
You can contact the Law of Lawyer Regulations. Grievances may be filed by telephone, phone, or email. Call 608-267-7274. And you can also submit it in writing. If you have any questions about that, give me a call at 414-351-1100. Senator, it's been great having you on the show. And we're going to take a quick call from Meech.
Hey,
Meech, you got about 1 minute. I'm sorry, Meech, you got about 1 minute. How you doing?
Oh, wow. Well, 1 minute. I understand what that young lady is going through, and her main thing, the main problem that she's probably having is probably a address. She probably needs a place of residency because she's completed all the requirements. And most of the time, the address issue is where you hang them up at in court. Now, that's what we need to be doing. But if you only gave me 1 minute, man, I can't pour a quart into a pint.
I got you.
I know what her plan. I ran a shelter for 15 years. Okay, I was so I understand the concept, and I know exactly what she's going through. If she don't have a resident right now, she can have completed all that. They'll keep on running her out. Then they'll go ahead on and adopt the kids, and that's our problem because once she doesn't have a job, then her income dries up because of the system dries up. Y'all talking about foster care. That lady over there is cringing right now when you talking about what foster care can do. Foster care can do nothing for us. It's a bounty on all of our kids.
Let me stop you right there. I'm sorry, Misha. I'm going to stop you right there. I'm going to tell you what foster care can do because we have to have a two-pronged approach. There's this message out there that there's not enough black homes, particularly in the central city, to keep black children here. So, no, hold it, Misha. Wait, hold it. And so what we have to do is two things. We have to go up the river to find out why all these black children are coming into the system, while having a station set up midstream so we can catch these black babies and keep them in our community until we can figure out how we can make some changes on a legislative level, on a program level. We can't just say we're going to go upstream and we don't have anything to do to catch the kids right now. But it's been great, Meech. I'm only paying for a certain amount of time to be on the show. We got to go. Thank you for calling. Keep tuning in. So it's been grand. It's been great. I'm going to wish you the best of luck. I'm going to stay in your corner and try to advocate for you to find out what's going on. I'm glad to hear your confidence, Miss Diane. I don't want you to give up. I don't want you to give in. I don't care how big this problem is. You have to continue to speak up. Just because you're involved in child welfare, whether you're a contractor, provider, or parent, does not mean you resign your constitutional right to freedom of speech. And you remember that. And if you don't like your judge, you're not getting along with not your judge, but if you don't like your attorney, you're not getting along, speak up. All right? So Thank you all for tuning in to, and I just want to say there's some great folks doing some great work in child welfare, but there's so much room for improvement, but we need to work together as a community. Thank you very much, and we'll be back next week. Be well and be safe.